best advice I've received would have been probably, from my dad. My dad was like, it's not about the money you make, it's about the money you save.
This is Property Investory, where we talk to successful property investors to find out more about their stories, mindset, and strategies. I'm Tyron Sharp, and in this episode, we're continuing the conversation with Andrew Morello, Head of Business Development at Yellow Brick Road. You'll discover how often the dumbest person in the room can work in your favour when building your wealth through property, and how you can learn from the experts to maximise your potential. Also, before we delve into this episode, go over to propertyinvestory.com and subscribe to receive your free property investor case studies, where you'll learn how to generate passive income from your properties. Go there now to sign up for free. A young risk taker, Morello has never been fazed and believes that as long as you love the house, nothing can hurt you.
Not really holding me back. Obviously, the numbers do need to crunch, and obviously the banks will and the lenders will determine that. That's why, obviously, I'm a partner at Yellow Brick Road. That's why you should be using a broker, just so they can look at all the different options for you. But from a mindset point of view, I was lucky because I had my father as a role model, and I think, there's a classic line that is in. I've written a sort of an ebook which is available on our Yellow Brick Road website called the Morello Matrix, which talks about sort of a little bit of the mindset stuff too. And one of the mistakes that people make is that more is lost with indecision than wrong decision. So the reality is, in Australia we have a growing population. It's a highly sought after country, highly sought after for immigration. We have we live on literally just on the outskirts of this. It's a coastal land, and we use like only 2 or 3% of it because the rest of it isn't really as livable or people don't really want to be out in the middle of the desert. Obviously, it'd be too hot to be out in the middle of Australia. So you can't really go wrong. Like if you go into it with an idea that you're going to buy a property and sell it and make money in 2 years, then that's wrong. You should be going into a property mindset with a buy and hold mentality and look to sell only really for either sorting out like a family home situation. So like I gave some advice recently to a friend who they bought a beautiful home in Kew in Melbourne, which is where they've always wanted to live. And, the husband thought it was a bad investment idea because obviously they would have had to have sold, like to sort of free up equity and cash, they would have had to have sold their investment properties. Couple, not all of them. They had 3 investment properties. This would have been 2. And I suggested to him, well, look, I think, not saying this in a chauvinistic way, but happy wife, happy life. So obviously his wife had the children, and she wasn't working right now. And I said, look, she's obviously, been a hard worker all her life, so she deserves to be in the home that she wants. And I think just better for the mindset of the household and the children to be happy and everyone to be happy, to be where you want to be. And then the second one was, like that you're still buying and selling in the same market. So like the Q property is still going to go up quite significantly. They don't need to be worried about the fact that they're not going to lose money as long as they get into a property. That's the main thing. So, the big thing one was more is lost with indecision than wrong decision, and obviously you got to enjoy your property portfolio as well.
Where there is success, there lies the education that made it happen. Despite not attending university, he gleaned information from certain resources that gave him the confidence that inspired his success.
It's an interesting story because I immersed myself in property full stop. Like I think the more you can immerse yourself, the better. So the more conversations you can have with people, the more... look, I'm not a massive fan of maybe the events. Like I used to go to the events when I was younger, but I felt like I got spooked too most of the time. So like to give you an idea, because I was sort of anti-events, Mark and I decided to run a new event. So we ran an event called the Prosperity Through Property Conference, but nothing got sold. You couldn't even book a Yellow Brick Road person. It was just literally a bunch of experts, us talking about our property journey, and Mark facilitating the whole thing. And we didn't sell anything because we didn't want anything to be sold. So even though when I say to people, immerse yourself, some people immerse themselves solely in the seminars, and they're not looking at a varied, do I think a house and land package halfway between Brisbane and the Gold Coast is a bad option? No, I don't. I think it's probably a good option right now because there's some reasonably priced ones. But the reality is that if you only go into stuff where they're selling or talking about off the plan and this and things of that nature, you need, your portfolio needs to be have a mixed category of existing stock, off the plan stock, some apartments, some houses, things of that nature, and you should look to balance it up. And the only way to really do that is, read some good books and, read I think the magazines are fantastic, the property investor magazines, because I think they tell the good, the bad and the ugly.
Yep.
And we've seen that in recent years, where they told the, sort of the doom and gloom story, because I think you just need to be vigilant of it, or some of the traps and so forth as well.
Despite the range of experts, millionaires and think tanks that Morello has come into contact with over his time on The Apprentice and at Yellow Brick Road, the best advice he has ever received and wants to share with you came from a much more homegrown source.
The best advice I've received would have been probably, from my dad. My dad was like, it's not about the money you make, it's about the money you save. And I think because he put that in my head, I've always been able to, people always laugh at me, but, my $300 watch is the same as I've got a Breitling as well, but my $300 watch is exactly the same thing as a $30,000 watch, which is tell the time. A $5,000 card is the same thing as a $500,000 card, gets you from A to B. At the end of the day, there's things you can do to enjoy, but I think small sacrifices at the beginning of your journey, whether your journey is at a young age or if you're in a mature age, it's irrelevant. Some small sacrifices at the beginning of your journey can lead to some great reward in the long term.
So exactly, how does someone in their 20s go from a single property to 9? Morello shares all the strategies, hints and advice that led him to his impressive portfolio.
So there's a couple of little tricks and tips I can give people. So first of all, it was a little bit easier up until just recently. So obviously now with the serviceability calculators, it will become a little bit of a challenge. So what I've actually recommended to people is to look at probably syndicating. So what I have done in the past as well is gone into some properties with family. So like with my brother, for example, and then also I've gone into 2 properties now with a business partner. So obviously I had the cash and I had the equity, but I didn't have the serviceability for sort of, a couple of the properties. So what we did is we looked at getting onto utilising the serviceability of a business partner of mine. So the banks, some of the more creative banks or outside the box banks will start to look at some of that. That's what I did. But I think, you also need to have a bit of a plan in place. So have a plan in place, and number 2, you need to be able to have the difficult conversations. So something I've always been very good at doing is having the what if conversation. So if you are going to do something with your brother, whether it's your brother or your sister or whatever or not, whether you are going to do something with a friend or a business partner, you need to be able to have the difficult conversation about the what if somebody wants to get out of the deal. And have agreed upon before going into the transaction, what are the terms? So like, how do we value the property if you want to get out or I want to get out, and so forth. And I've done that before. I've bought, a partner out of a property. I needed the use of their help at the time. I told them it was probably short term. What we did is we came to an agreement that we would both get a valuation of the property and we take the medium of the valuation.
The hardships of life can also be a major roadblock in someone's property investment journey, so it's always best to be prepared, according to Morello.
And you need to have, Colin, you need to have the difficult conversations around things like divorce and people passing away. And no one obviously wants to talk about those sorts of things, but obviously, if someone's going through a divorce, you don't want to have to inherit, let's say your business partner, let's say you weren't that close with his wife, or it was an unamicable divorce. You don't want to inherit your business partner's ex-wife as now your property partner. So, you'd have to have these things agreed upon. So that way they would, if there was a marriage split up, marital settlement, that they would have to come out of somewhere else. And then the next thing, obviously, as well is, you've got to treat family and these sorts of things. Family and business are exactly the same. So to give you an idea, one time that my father did help me out, he got loan agreements drawn up, for, professional loan agreements from lawyers. And I didn't read them because they're obviously from my dad, and no one actually reads their loan agreements. Anyway, I had to pay some people back. It was an element of sort of a little bit of what they call mezzanine funding. I was short to get the settlement done. And first of all, my dad said no to me 10 times before he finally said yes, and I explained I was going to lose my deposit, going to lose all this other money. And he said yes, but charge me interest as well, like some normal interest. And, and then I finished paying out the normal interest. And then I got a letter from a lawyer saying that, there was penalty interest that had been incurred because I was late and I didn't realise, and I didn't read the agreement and all that. I thought, he's my dad, he's not going to actually enforce it, but he did as out of like some my father. Well, I tell you what my father is, Tom. My father's like an Italian Yoda. Like he thinks like that he's teaching me a lesson. He did. You know what? I'll give him credit. He did teach me a lesson a day, and. The reality is, I said to him as a bit of a joke, I said, how inheritance works, like one day you'll pass away and I will inherit that money that I just gave you back. And he said, I'll live to 150 just to spite you. And I'm like, yeah, probably will actually. So he's 69 this year, but I'll tell you, if you met him, you would think he was 25 still. He's always looking for the next deal and the next opportunity.
So, what exactly are the steps that you can take to be so successful at only 30 years old? After the break, we'll hear the strategy that Morello has employed to be where he is today.
Surround myself with smarter people.
As well as which personal habit of Morello he attributes to his success.
I go and have a catch up with some of the real estate agents.
And finally, we'll hear what books he recommends for property investors at all levels.
Great book, very simple to read.
The thoughts and choices behind the strategy that has allowed Morello to garner the success and wealth that some of us can only dream of achieving at such a young age.
I think the plan of the goal, not to sort of burst everyone's bubble and think that they're listening to the magician and I've got the secret recipe or anything like that. Reality is that I've always prided myself on being the dumbest person in the room. So I surround myself with smarter people. And one of those people is a gentleman named Daniel Carini. He owns the Yellow Brick Road branch. He was also my mentor for one of my mentors for the last sort of 7 or 8 years. But Daniel sort of determines my next move. So what happens is he and I might have a catch up quarterly. And the other thing I got to tell people is people go, what's your strategy? Your strategy is that you need to treat it like a business. I don't want to, Tyrone, say to someone, it needs to be within 10, 15 k's of the city or whatever, because you look at, this stuff that's just happened in Brisbane and Gold Coast, in between Brisbane and Gold Coast, there's been some great opportunities. Now, would I personally buying an apartment right now in a major city? Probably not. That's personally me. If it was an existing stock, so let's say I own an apartment in Bondi in Campbell Parade. Let's say one of the apartments came up in the building, 100-year-old, 80 to 100-year-old sort of Art Deco, sort of 1920s. So nearly 100 years Art Deco sort of building. If one came up in there, would I buy it? Yes, I would, because that's kind of apartment I'd buy right now, because it's going to val up because it's in a good area and it's the bank's going to see it in good stead. Plus, I own another one in the building, so there's only like 8 in the building. So if you don't know a lot, then you got then it's in a very good position. But the reality is that I don't think there's necessarily completely right or wrong. It's just got to be like, what can you afford, and also what are you in a position to sort of maintain that property position if you were to have a period of time when the property or properties are vacant.
Unsurprisingly, Morello favours his long-running habit of simply talking to other intelligent and successful people. And it seems that this easy technique really does pay off into giant wealth accumulation.
I'll give you a little quirk that I do. Everywhere I go in the world, I go and have a catch-up with some of the real estate agents. So, whenever I've had girlfriends over the years, I don't know if they enjoy it as much as I do, but what I'll do is, I got to Cannes for the Cannes Film Festival, and then I went to Nice, and the hotel next to a Century 21 in Nice, and I walked in and I said to the guy, "Can I take you out for lunch?" And he's like, I don't know if he thought maybe I was hitting on him or something, but I just said, "Can I take you for lunch?" I explained that I was in property and finance back in Australia. I said, "I'd love to just pick your brain on it." So what I do is, like, if you want to call it a habit or a bit of a quirk, is I'm always looking for real people to have discussions with, and then don't be afraid to challenge what they say. So, like, often, I got a mate that's in the Gold Coast right now, and I know that he's trying to sort of sell apartments in the Gold Coast, and he's always trying to pitch to me that the Gold Coast, it's ripe for the pickings right now. And I don't disagree with him. There are some great opportunities in the Gold Coast, but he's always trying to pitch these apartments to me. And I said, mate, I know that a 2-bedroom, $840,000 2-bedroom in Southport is not a good property investment decision. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to lose money, but I'm definitely not going to be making any money in the short to medium term. So, I'm always looking for opportunities where there's a chance to actually leverage off and use my connections to increase some value in some way, shape or form.
This is always a difficult question to answer. With so many outstanding resources available for free and purchase out there, our guests here at Property Investory sometimes struggle to name their favourite books to help you with your investment journey. Next, you'll hear Morello's recommendations that stretch from property investment to mindset to spiritual development.
Probably a couple of things. So first of all, do go on the ybr.com.au website or even just Google Morello Matrix and it'll come up and you can download the ebook there. We'd love for you to learn as much as you can from that. And you can add me on social media as well at Andrew Morello on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook it's Andrew Marcello Morello, Marcello. So you can watch sort of some of the things that we're doing. But I think like a book that is worth reading just about life and about sort of having the right mindset and methodology, not just around property. It's written by a property expert, but not just around property, but around life, is You Don't Have to Be Born Brilliant by John McGrath. So I don't know if you've read it before, but I love it. Yeah, it's a great book, very simple to read. John barely finished high school as well. He's one of my close mentors. So I think at the end of the day, I think that's, it's a really good book just to sort of put you in good stead and give you some good pragmatic advice on how to sort of prepare for your future and how to go about methodology about going about things. But probably the next one I would say, if I'm allowed to put one more in there,
sure,
is if you're interested in sort of working on some of your spiritual development and sort of some of your, understanding of what is actually, in sort of your subconscious, is a great book that I read that was very easy to read. So obviously I've read the sort of the standard ones, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and so forth. They're quite difficult to read. But I'm a simple boy from Moonee Ponds, but the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, these 4 principles that if you live your life by, they're Toltec teachings from 2,000 years ago. I think you should put you in very good stead to make the magic happen.
From these heights, what is the next goal for Morello?
I've just launched a competitor against Uber, effectively. It's called, I know everyone's like, because everybody told me it couldn't be done. That was basically the reason why I did it. Everyone goes to me, oh no, this, it's a $66 billion company. How are you going to take them on? And I jumped on a plane with my business partner, Z, and we flew to Uxbridge in London. And we realised there was a niche in the market. So where the niche was that there is a lot of people that want to drive cars but can't afford cars and also can't afford the upkeep of cars. there's also a lot of people in taxis that don't want to be driving taxis, not taxi owners, but the taxi drivers. So what we thought is, how do we create a hybrid between the two? And the hybrid between the two was we went and forged a relationship with Hertz Global, and now we use Hertz depots in Sydney to allow drivers to pick up cars for 1 to infinite day rentals, and obviously the longer they keep it, the cheaper it is for them. And then basically they pay like a discounted day rate through Hertz, and they get 100% of their fares. So what happens is they basically provide a service like Uber. People can download the app on the Apple Store today. It's HOP, H-O-P, and then Hertz, H-E-R-T-Z, like it's in Hertz Car Rental. And what happens is they effectively get 100% of the fare as a driver, but the consumer gets a fare roughly, on average, 10 to 14% cheaper than Uber, because we don't do any surcharging, number one, and two, the driver gets 100% of the fare, so you don't need to obviously pay too much there. The consumer pays a $2 booking fee, but they don't really mind because they're getting generally 10 to sort of 20% off in the surge period, sometimes even further. And the other thing is as well, we don't surge. So the consumer, there's a win for the consumer, a win for the driver, and obviously a win for us because we've partnered with such a great company, which is Hertz Car Rental, and they've been such a big supporter of what we're trying to do over here. And they realise that Australia is a big market and worth investing into.
Wow. I'd be interested to see how this goes for you. This sounds like a very exciting and really amazing business opportunity as well to be able to get into it. Is this going to be spread across worldwide, or are you just focusing right now on Australia?
We'll focus on Sydney initially. So we've got the initial cars out on the streets now. So download the app today from the Apple App Store. The Android will be out probably in a couple of weeks. So we brought out the first version, so we're just sort of beta testing it now. But it is very exciting. We're off to San Francisco to speak to some of the guys from the Hertz over there, and also some of our overseas competitors to look at sort of a partnership deal where we, sort of keep exit in mind rather than, sort of building a company that we think needs to be built. What we'll do is we'll build a company that they're looking for people to build.
Do you wish to be one of those interesting people that Morello talks to? Do you have any questions or queries for him? If so,
yeah, so social media is probably the best way. So Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. But also there's andrewmorello.com. So they can go on my website and there's a little clicks for some of the property stuff that we do there. And we're always looking to run more events and do more things. So I'm sure we'll keep people updated through social media as well.
Thank you to Andrew Morello for coming on to Property Investory. If you want to hear about Andrew Morello's story where 18 years old had already saved up an impressive $50,000 for his first property deposit and currently owns 9 properties in his portfolio, then visit our website at propertyinvestory.com. Simply type in the search bar Andrew Morello and select that episode to listen and learn about his journey. You can also get the full transcript and show notes on our website.